Jessica Martinez stared at the text message on her phone, reading it for the third time. The words hadn't changed, but somehow she kept hoping they would rearrange themselves into something that made sense, something that didn't feel like her heart being ripped from her chest. Jess, we need to talk. I've been thinking about us, and I don't think this is working anymore. You deserve someone who can give you the life you want, but I can't be that person right now. I'm sorry. She set the phone down on her small kitchen table, the same one she'd bought secondhand when she and Marcus first moved in together 2 years ago. The apartment felt smaller now, suffocating even. The dreams they'd shared, the late-night conversations about building something together, opening their own restaurant, it all seemed like a cruel joke now. When Marcus arrived that evening, he couldn't meet her eyes. His usually confident demeanor was replaced by nervous fidgeting and stammered explanations. "It's not you, Jess. You're incredible, but..." "But what, Marcus? What changed?" Jessica's voice was steady despite the storm raging inside her. He ran, his hands through his dark hair, a gesture she'd once found endearing. "I met someone. Her name is Victoria Ashworth. She's different. She comes from money. Real money. She can offer me opportunities, connections, a future I could never have otherwise." The name hit her like a physical blow. Victoria Ashworth, daughter of tech mogul Richard Ashworth, socialite, trust fund princess. Jessica had seen her in the society pages, all perfect smile and designer everything. "So this is about money?" Jessica's voice cracked despite her efforts. "It's about being practical. We've been struggling, Jess, working double shifts, counting every penny. With Victoria, I could have the restaurant I've always dreamed of. She's already talking about investing in my career." Jessica wanted to scream that they had been building something together, that their struggles were temporary, that love was supposed to matter more than bank accounts. Instead, she watched the man she'd loved for 3 years walk out of their shared life without looking back. After he left, Jessica sat in the darkness of her apartment, surrounded by the remnants of their relationship. The cookbook, collection they'd built together, the photos from their weekend food truck adventures, the business plan they'd drafted for their dream restaurant. Everything felt like evidence of a life that had never really existed, at least not for him. But as the tears finally came, something else stirred beneath the heartbreak, a fierce determination she'd inherited from her grandmother, who'd immigrated to America with nothing but hope and grit. Marcus thought she wasn't enough, that she couldn't offer him the future he wanted. She'd prove him wrong. 3 months after Marcus walked out, Jessica Martinez was barely recognizable as the heartbroken woman who'd cried herself to sleep for weeks. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. It had been forged in the crucible of long nights, relentless determination, and the kind of focused fury that only comes from having everything you believed in shattered. She'd started small. The food truck idea she and Marcus had discussed wasn't dead. It was just hers now. Using her savings and a small loan from her uncle Roberto, she'd bought a beat-up truck and spent weeks learning to repair it herself. YouTube became her university, teaching her everything from engine maintenance to food safety regulations. Abuela's Kitchen hit the streets on a rainy Tuesday morning in downtown Phoenix. Jessica had named it after her grandmother, whose recipes formed the backbone of her menu. Traditional Mexican street food with her own twist. Fusion flavors. That told the story of her family's journey from Guadalajara to Arizona. The first week was brutal. She sold maybe 20 items total, barely covering gas. But Jessica had learned something about herself in those dark months after Marcus left. She was stubborn in the best possible way. Every rejection, every slow day, every equipment malfunction just made her more determined. By month 2, she had regular customers. Tech workers from the nearby startup district discovered her breakfast burritos. College students lined up for her late-night tacos. But it was when food blogger David Kim featured her Korean-Mexican fusion bowl on his Instagram that everything changed. "This isn't just food," he'd written. "This is storytelling on a plate. Jessica Martinez isn't just feeding people, she's creating experiences." The post went viral locally, then regionally. Food Network reached out. Local investors started calling. But Jessica was strategic now, careful. She'd learned that trust had to be earned, not given freely. She expanded slowly, methodically. A second truck, then a third. She hired carefully, choosing people who shared her vision rather than just needing a job. Her cousin Carmen became her operations manager. Her friend Zoe, a business major, helped with finances. The hardest part wasn't the 18-hour days or the constant pressure. It was the loneliness. Success felt hollow when you had no one to share it with. She'd see couples at her food truck, laughing and planning their futures together, and the old wound would throb. But she'd also discovered something powerful. She didn't need someone else's validation to build an extraordinary life. Every satisfied customer, every positive review, every dollar in profit was proof that she was enough, that she'd always been enough. One evening, as she was closing up her flagship truck, she saw a familiar figure in the distance. Marcus, walking hand in hand with a blonde woman who had to be Victoria. They didn't see her, but Jessica watched them for a moment, waiting for the old pain to return. Instead, she felt nothing, or rather, she felt free. 2 years after Abuela's Kitchen first hit the streets, Jessica Martinez stood in the empty shell of what would become her first brick-and-mortar restaurant. The 3,000-square-foot space in Scottsdale's trendy arts district represented everything she'd worked toward, and everything Marcus had believed she could never achieve. The food truck empire had grown to 8 vehicles across 3 cities. Her team had expanded to 47 employees, each one carefully chosen and generously compensated. Jessica had learned that loyalty wasn't bought with minimum wage and empty promises. "The contractors estimate 6 weeks for the kitchen renovation," Carmen said, reviewing the tablet in her hands. As operations manager, she'd grown into the role of Jessica's right hand, the calm strategist to Jessica's creative visionary. And the permits? All approved. The city council was actually excited about the project. Apparently, having a successful local businesswoman opening in the arts district fits their revitalization goals perfectly. The restaurant would be the crown jewel, a sit-down establishment that elevated her food truck concepts into a full dining experience. She'd partnered with local artists to create murals that told the story of her grandmother's journey. The menu would feature elevated versions of her street food alongside new dishes that pushed boundaries. But the restaurant was only part of Jessica's expanding vision. She'd also launched Abuela's Spice Company, selling her signature seasoning blends online. The profit margins were incredible, and the brand recognition was growing nationally. Food magazines were starting to take notice. The real breakthrough had come when celebrity chef Thomas Rodriguez, himself a Mexican-American success story, had visited her food truck unannounced. His subsequent Instagram post to his 2 million followers had changed everything overnight. "This young woman is doing something special," he'd written. "She's not just preserving tradition, she's evolving it. Watch this space." The post led to a feature in Food and Wine magazine, then a profile in Entrepreneur. Suddenly, Jessica wasn't just running a successful food business. She was being recognized as an innovative young entrepreneur worth watching. The attention brought opportunities she'd never imagined. Speaking engagements at business conferences, invitations to food festivals in New York and Los Angeles, a preliminary conversation with a publisher about a cookbook deal. It also brought challenges, competitors trying to poach her employees, landlords suddenly interested in tripling her rent. The constant pressure to scale faster, expand more aggressively. Jessica had learned to navigate it all with the same methodical approach that had built her success. She surrounded herself with smart people, took calculated risks, and never lost sight of what made her business special: authentic food made with genuine care. Late at night, when the restaurants were closed and the trucks were parked, she'd sometimes think about Marcus. Not with longing anymore, but with a kind of wonder. His betrayal had forced her to discover strengths she'd never known she possessed. His leaving had created space for her to become someone extraordinary. She'd heard through mutual friends that his relationship with Victoria was struggling, that the restaurant she'd funded for him was failing, that he'd been asking people about Jessica's success. But those updates felt like news from another lifetime, relevant to someone she used to be. The call came on a Tuesday morning while Jessica was reviewing quarterly reports in her new corporate office, a sleek space above her flagship restaurant that she'd never imagined she'd need. Carmen burst through the door without knocking, her face flushed with excitement. "Jess, you need to take this call right now," she said, holding out her phone. "It's Forbes." Jessica had been featured in local and regional publications, but Forbes was different. Forbes meant national recognition. It meant being taken seriously. In business circles that still sometimes dismissed food entrepreneurs as just restaurateurs. The conversation with senior editor Rachel Morrison was surreal. They wanted to feature Jessica in their annual 30 Under 30 list in the food and drink category. The article would highlight her transformation from heartbroken food truck owner to multi-million-dollar business mogul in under 4 years. "Your story embodies the American dream," Morrison explained. "But more than that, it represents a new generation of entrepreneurs who are building businesses with both profit and purpose. Our readers need to hear about what you're accomplishing." The photo shoot was scheduled for the following week. A team of photographers and stylists would come to her restaurant to capture her in her element. The article would run in both the print magazine and online, with additional content for their social media channels. Jessica hung up and sat in stunned silence. Forbes. The magazine she used to flip through in dentist offices, reading about tech, billionaires, and inherited business empires. Now they wanted to feature her story. The preparation was intense. A media consultant helped her craft her key messages. A stylist selected outfits that projected authority while staying true to her authentic style. The photographer, James Chen, was known for making business leaders look both powerful and approachable. "I want to capture the real you," he explained during the pre-shoot meeting. "Not some corporate version, but the woman who built this empire from a beat-up food truck and pure determination." The day of the shoot was surreal. Jessica posed in her restaurant kitchen, surrounded by her team. She stood next to her original food truck, now retired but kept as a symbol of her journey. She sat in her office, reviewing plans for her next expansion, a fast-casual concept that would bring her food to shopping malls and airports across the Southwest. The interviewer, a sharp woman named Patricia Valdez, asked questions that went beyond the typical success story narrative. They discussed the challenges of scaling a food business, the importance of maintaining quality while expanding, the responsibility she felt to her employees and community. What would you tell someone who's facing their own heartbreak, their own moment of feeling like they're not enough? Patricia asked near the end. Jessica thought carefully before answering. "I'd tell them that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you creates space for the best thing that could happen to you, but only if you're willing to do the work. Success isn't about proving someone else wrong, it's about proving yourself right." The article was scheduled to publish in 6 weeks. Jessica tried to continue with business as usual, but she couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change again. She was right, but not in the way she expected. The Forbes article hit the internet at 6 a.m. on a Thursday in March. By noon, Jessica's phone hadn't stopped ringing. Interview requests from major media outlets, partnership proposals from national restaurant chains, investment offers from venture capital firms who suddenly saw the potential they'd missed 4 years earlier. But the call that mattered most came at 2:47 p.m. "Jess, it's Marcus." His voice was hesitant, uncertain in a way she'd never heard before. She almost hung up, but curiosity won. "I saw the Forbes article," he continued when she didn't respond. I wanted to congratulate you. What you've built is incredible." "Thank you," she said simply, her voice professionally neutral. "Could we maybe meet for coffee? I know it's presumptuous, but I'd really like to talk to you in person." Against her better judgment, or maybe because she needed closure, Jessica agreed to meet him the next afternoon at a neutral cafe downtown. He looked older, she noticed. The confident swagger that had once attracted her was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. His clothes were expensive, but somehow didn't fit quite right, like a costume he wasn't comfortable wearing. "You look amazing," he said, as she sat down. "Success suits you." "What do you want, Marcus?" He fidgeted with his coffee cup, avoiding her eyes. "I wanted to apologize for how I left, for what I said. I thought I was being practical, but I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Of not being enough for you. You had all these dreams, this incredible drive. I convinced myself you deserved someone who could give you more than I could." Jessica felt a flash of the old anger. "So you left me for someone who could give you more than I could?" He winced. "Victoria and it's complicated. The restaurant she funded, it's not doing well. I thought having money behind me would make everything easier, but it turns out you can't buy passion. You can't buy the kind of vision you have. And now I realize I gave up the most extraordinary woman I've ever known because I was too insecure to believe in us. Too afraid to do the hard work of building something real." Jessica studied his face, looking for the man she'd once loved. He was there, underneath the regret and the expensive clothes, but he felt like a stranger now. "Marcus, 4 years ago, your leaving nearly destroyed me, but it also forced me to discover who I really was underneath our relationship. I built this business, this life, not to prove you wrong, but to prove myself right." She leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "I don't need your apology, though I appreciate it. I don't need your validation. What I needed, I found in myself." "So there's no chance? For us?" "No. But I wish you well, Marcus. I really do." She stood to leave, then turned back one last time. "For what it's worth, you were wrong about one thing. I did deserve someone who could give me the life I wanted. It just turned out that someone was me." Walking away from that cafe, Jessica felt lighter than she had in years. The last ghost from her past had been laid to rest. Her phone buzzed with another interview request, another opportunity, another step forward in the life she'd built from the ashes of heartbreak. The Forbes article had called her the Phoenix Rising of Food Entrepreneurship. As she walked back to her restaurant, where her team was preparing for another busy dinner service, Jessica smiled. Rising was exactly what she'd done.